you. Roll call. So Eileen Flynn.
Here.
James Zarsky.
Here.
Essie Snell.
Here.
Lisa Skumatz. Jonathan Koffler.
Here.
Mike Henshin. Caitlin Stafford.
Here.
Does anyone have any suggested changes or additions to the agenda? If you can see it. Turn off lights so you can see it a little bit. Yeah, thanks. I think so.
We can always turn these on back here too, so that you guys have lights.
I don't know if it requires a formal change to the agenda, but I just want to give you guys a brief update on what was discussed at Monday's board meeting regarding the Town of Superior Water Conservation Plan.
Okay.
Yeah, so it doesn't require a change. We can do that in new business and
updates.
updates.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that it right there? Is there anything else?
Sorry, there are a few other additional items. Cool. All right, so do we need a motion to approve the agenda? Or-
Yes.
Okay, so motion to approve the agenda? Aye. All in favor?
Yes.
All right. Moving on to public comment. Some strange person in the audience.
I know. I miss
Please
y'all
state
so
your
much.
name.
Yeah.
I'm Michelle Horton. Do you want to take my address?
Yes.
Yes, 3341 West Torreys Peak. It's been a while in Superior. But hey, I, after our last meeting, was approached by a town member who happens to be on another committee. But she approached me specifically to saying that she noticed that there was not much effort from the town in terms of what used to be zero waste at the events. And I told her, well, you know, I hadn't really quite thought about it because I thought that we used compostable products and whatnot at the town level. And so I did confirm today with Kevin, I always muck up his last name, Colon, at the town, who used to do a lot of the event stuff. And I know that back when it was zero waste events, as a community member, he volunteered a lot to help lead those. So the short history is that when the town merged all to be Western Disposal instead of original town being EcoCycle and Rock Creek being off of Western, that whole zero waste thing at the events essentially went away. And the town just basically uses compostable when available and makes sense. I don't know that there's a necessary mandate, but I just thought as a committee it might be something you wanted to look at in terms of how it goes. Because as it was iterated to me today by the town, was that they just try to use compostable when it makes sense, but they don't require any other vendors be doing the same. And so it's great because the town's doing their part to a certain extent, but they're not really passing on that whole thing. The one sort of variation would be someplace like the Chili Fest, since the town puts together the sampling bags or whatever, those are compostable, but it's not required that anybody coming there as a vendor does the same. So I don't know, I thought that was just interesting that like the zero waste thing makes sense because EcoCycle helped provide the people, but it's just interesting that there's not any kind of a mandate to do that. And I guess Dina Miller, who is the new head of all event things with the town, is kind of the contact, but I didn't speak with her at all and stuff like that on what their plans were, whatnot. But I just thought it was interesting, and I've provided feedback to the town member that approached me about it and just said that I would also bring it up to your guys' attention and let you put it on a future work plan if you saw fit. So that's it.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
You know, to Michelle's comment, were any of you guys at the July 4th thing?
For a little while.
Well, I don't know if you guys know this, at the cutlery, I think it had some sort of like, you know, special name that sounded like it was compostable, but actually if you flipped it over and looked at the back of it, it said non-compostable.
It's a trick.
So,
I didn't eat pancakes, but my husband did.
but yeah, so everybody was throwing the cutlery in the compostable bin because it had some sort of bio product name on it. But then, like I said, you flip over the back of the fork, it said non-compostable. So I think
Oh, bummer.
to support her message, I was surprised to see that. So,
Yeah, I think that'd be a great topic to discuss at a future meeting. We can dive
Yeah,
into.
definitely at a future meeting, but.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great to
I
see.
think
if
it
we
makes a
can-
lot of sense
if there's
to
something we can propose.
talk
Yeah,
about that.
definitely.
Yeah.
And more.
All right. So we can move on to new business updates. And Ken, do you want to start off?
Sure. So, for those of you that may or may not have watched the town board meeting on Monday, one of the topics that came forward to us was the approval of the water conservation plan. This is something that has to happen every 7 years. It is a requirement by the state of Colorado to have one in place. So this was Superior's update to ours. And just to clarify, did this committee ever see that plan, or did it ever come to you guys for consideration?
I was just about to
when
ask
you
that
sent
question.
it.
Okay. I didn't think so either. I think it kind of got lost. It, I think was sent up the chain, but never got forwarded back down to you guys. There was a public comment period for it prior to last night, but that closed. But just because the plan is now finalized doesn't mean we can't take additional steps to improve our water conservation. I would definitely encourage all of you to take a minute, well, several minutes to look at the plan.
50,
It's a
yeah.
pretty beefy document. But to highlight some of the discussion that came out during the board meeting, there were specifically a few things that I noticed and called to attention. Our residential green building program, in the section within the report on that topic, there was a sentence that said, adding a requirement to include a certain percentage of water efficient points would be a simple way to ensure additional water efficiency for new construction. And then also in the bullet underneath that, there were a few sentences that said, the town is also currently drafting a code section for commercial construction that would outline similar green building requirements. While in draft format, it would be a good opportunity for the town to consider adding water efficiency requirements to the commercial code. I pushed Alex and Matt and just in questions of whether or not we're actually moving forward with those. Alex did a quick straw poll of the board. Nobody was against moving forward with those. So my understanding is the town staff is now going to be bringing an update to the code to us to include those. So if there's anything else that you guys saw in this document or any other code changes that you think are complementary to that might make sense, it might be a good topic for the next meeting to discuss and mull over, because if we're going to update the code now for water conservation, might as well hit everything else too if there's anything that's kind of on your agenda. So just want to make sure you all are aware of it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Are you looking for our input on what sort of criteria and specs for water efficiency should be built into that code?
My understanding is that town staff already has that, but if you want to provide that input, by all means, there's no reason why you couldn't or shouldn't. And if there are specific things that you see within our code that can be improved with very specific, I guess, whether it's quantities or anything that comes actual granular details, by all means, that's always invited.
Would it be possible for town staff to give us an update on like what they're looking at, just so we know what they're already trying to do? And I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it's super helpful for us to reinvent the wheel if they're already doing a lot of great stuff.
As far as which part?
Sorry for the water efficiency piece of
Right.
adding to the code.
So that
I was going to say I could send an email and just ask for more clear language on what's being looked at. Since it was referenced here, clearly there's something that's being looked at. I'll see if it can get forwarded over to you guys prior to the next meeting so it can be discussed.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Should we, I assume the water code is just on the Town of Superior website. Do we just need to go find that and look it up and see what it currently specifies? Or is that
So the first
An
piece
offline
was within the
document.
municipal code, and then the second piece, Yeah, it also looks like it's in the municipal code, so I don't know what specific sections within our municipal code.
So I actually have the municipal code bookmarked because for the other thing, the other topic we were talking about. So if you want to just search there at the top, search right at the top where it says search or jump to.
Sure,
You
it's
can put it
water.
in and it'll come right up.
And that's on the website?
Yeah, if you Google municipal code Superior, Colorado,
Yeah.
it's within the top 3 Google hits. I was looking at it earlier today.
Okay.
So it looks like there's nothing efficiency related that obviously pops out. There's contamination, I guess water utility design, maybe. Yeah, that's not specific to efficiency.
Yeah, I'll shoot an email over to Alex and Matt.
What page is that in the document?
In the document, it is page 2-8.
I mean, I think the thing we could help define is flow rates of fixtures and types of water fixtures, you know? Off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And is that kind of what you guys are going that direction? Like you know, urinals have to have this flush rate or less, or toilets need to have this flush rate or less, like that kind of stuff?
I mean, that's what I was envisioning, but I have as much information as you do on it, so I don't know either. One other interesting piece that I didn't actually know existed that was within this document is that we actually have a restriction within our town code that we're not allowed to water between April 1st and October 31st between the times of day from 10 to 6. And that's not just during drought times, that is always in our municipal code. And I didn't actually know that. Maybe you guys did, but I figured I'd share it.
I think I've heard that, but then that could sound to enforcement, right?
Yeah, so I asked about that during the meeting, and the response was that we enforce it with a soft touch. If we see people doing it, staff will go around and just help remind them that this is not effective or efficient and kind of push people towards the right direction. So it's not enforced with the ticket immediately, and it's very soft, but
Okay.
they said it is enforced. That's all I had.
So is there a timeline that we need to get back to you, to get back to the board on some water efficiency guidelines?
I have no idea how fast we'll come back to the board. I would say if you guys want to talk about it in your next meeting, that's probably a good idea.
Within the right guy, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Try not to belabor the topic, but, okay.
Yeah. But I think the like municipal code enforcement of like identifying what those things are that relate to our committee ties into some of what we had talked with the board about a few months ago of the like, what are the actions you can take as a Superior resident? And so if it's one of those like, did you know that our municipal code says you can only water between this time and this time? That could be a good, just
Yeah.
like public awareness
Yeah, I think so.
campaign.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Should I do an e-blast?
I was gonna say, it seems like a great e-blast topic.
Right? Don't water.
Did you know?
That's all I got.
Friendly question.
Yeah.
Thanks for the update. So if there are no further comments, we'll move over to the newsletter. Is there anything in particular that's, thanks, Michelle. Anything in particular that we should focus on?
I just wanted to make you aware that we do have 2 vacancies on ACES, so that if you want to speak with your networks and let people know that we do have 2. In the newsletter, it only said 1 because just this week I heard that Howard Fisher has resigned. He's moving out of town, so he has resigned. And then, of course, Michelle's position was termed out. So we do have the 2 vacancies, and that was listed in the newsletter. And then, which is the next topic here is the Resource Central WaterWise seminar. And so that was posted in both the Town Sentinel and our Pros newsletter. I spoke with Darren Knowles from Resource Central on Tuesday, and we have 10 people registered so far.
What's our limit?
50.
Okay.
So if we want to continue to spread the word throughout our individual networks, that would be great. We've done a ton of advertising on it, social media wise, e-blast wise, and then the 2 newsletters. And then Darren through Resource Central is also tapping into all of their email lists through Garden in a Box and all of their different water resource classes that they've had in the past. So they just resend out So we're hoping, to get a pretty full room. I know July is a busy travel month, so it's kind of difficult. And then just if you guys want to put the date on your calendars too, it's Tuesday, July 30th at the Sports Stable from 6 to 8 p.m. So, and then I think the only other stuff was down below. There was a Recycle Wise, know where to put your batteries article. I think if you keep going, it should be pretty soon, right there. Don't ignite, recycle, right? And that comes directly from Boulder County. So we utilize their advertising to get that information out. So I think
So
that's
as a general question, I know that there's a thing in the newsletter about the new hotel that just opened up. And I know that the whole point of that hotel was to be super eco-friendly and get LEED certified. Does anyone happen to know what their actual certification level is, or if it's happened yet, or?
that I don't know.
Is it the one right across?
Yeah, the Element.
I can find out. I can
I was just
definitely
curious.
pose that question. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, we talked about the Resource Central WaterWise seminar, so that'd be great. So we can move on to discussion items. So we'll start off with update on the Partners in Energy application. And has anyone heard from Lisa about the status of that? Okay. Would anyone, I'll reach out to Lisa again. I wasn't able to get in touch with her before the meeting, but would anyone be interested in taking over the application if Lisa's not able to do so? It's due at the end of the month, which is why I bring it up.
Yeah, I can help with that sort of thing.
Okay.
It's due at the end of this month.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that might,
offer
that,
her to help, but I don't think I would want to take a lead on it.
Okay.
that might be tight,
That's
actually.
Did she say she had that in pretty good shape? I can't remember if she.
I
had
thought she
told
said she had it in
the
pretty good
progress
shape.
was.
She seemed to
But-
figure she was going to have it done in a week.
Yeah.
After the last meeting.
So maybe it's a matter of just reminding her to get it in.
Yeah, so I'll reach out again and see, and if it's looking like for whatever reason she's not gonna be able to make it work, then I'll get back out to the group and we'll figure out a plan via email.
All right, sounds good.
Cool, thanks everyone. On to Green Business Awards, recognition and next steps. If there's anything new on that, I know.
Sorry, I still had another agenda item in the one I copied
Oh,
over.
sorry.
So no big updates, distributing decals, the e-blast went out, it looked really good.
That's great.
Applications are open for the 2019 round, so just, I think figuring out, encouraging people to apply, for this next round. I think we had talked about, like making a little postcard or something that committee members could be taking to businesses when we're engaging in the community, not just leaving it to Pace and Matt for doing that outreach. So I'm happy to draft something and see what we can get to people like next month to start doing that.
Cool, that'd be great. Any other questions or comments around that? Sounds good. So next up is, we had talked about potentially proposing a change to the municipal code around EV charging. And so I threw together a document that's basically just copying the Boulder municipal code items, and want to run it by everyone and see if it's something that we'd like to officially propose to the board for consideration. Essentially, there are three parts. There's residential construction and renovation, multifamily, and then commercial. So the residential portion is specifying that basically any new construction includes both a 120 volt and a 240 volt charging outlet, and that they're labeled as being exclusively for electric vehicles, so that people, when they move into their homes, understand what the purpose of that outlet is. Similarly, for renovation, it's really focused on dwellings where garages are being converted to habitable space, which is sort of a, I thought, a slightly weird specification. but it does narrow it down. And so again, focusing on the 120 or 240 volt dedicated outlet for when those renovations happen. I'll let people read through that before I scroll down.
This is Boulder?
Yeah, this is what Boulder currently requires. And it's worth noting too that I looked at a bunch of other cities and towns in the area, and Boulder is pretty much the only area that has something in their municipal code about EV charging. No other regions currently mention it. So I'm gonna go ahead and scroll down a little bit more. And then for multifamily, the specification is basically that any dwelling that has more than 25 parking spaces has to have 10% as parking spaces with EV charging. And that includes handicap accessible spaces. And then half of the parking spaces that have dedicated charging have to be marked as EV only, basically.
In the new downtown, would that apply to some of those dwellings? And
So this would be for any new construction that gets
that's already
approved.
done, so.
Yeah, exactly. But it would help, if we adopted the code relatively soon, it would help ensure that as new construction happens in the downtown area, that we get a lot more charging facilities available. The other part too is that it mandates that for multifamily, at least 2 parking spaces will have a level 2 charger available and be designated exclusively for EV charging. Were you gonna say something?
So a code change that, like, if we did change the code to the point of downtown, because their permits are already approved, even though they haven't started construction, all of that multifamily would be under the old code.
Is that true, Ken? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My understanding is that if it's already gone through the approval
Planning.
process
Yeah.
with the town board, then it would be under whatever codes were in place at that time.
Gotcha.
I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. But with that said, there's still a lot that needs to come to the board. There's the entire Toll Brothers piece, which is the largest residential piece that's on the southeast side of the development, and the entire northern piece needs to come to the board for approval as well, which will have, at least from conceptually what came to us, quite a bit of multifamily. So there's a lot that has not been approved yet. However, that all is coming up for approval within the next few months, is my understanding. So
Okay.
this would have to happen quite quickly.
Okay. And finally, the commercial requirements are largely pretty much the same as the multifamily, with a couple small exceptions. And group R1 or R2 occupancy buildings are things like hotels and apartment buildings. And so those have slightly different criteria in here. One of the things is that above a certain number of parking spaces, rather than just saying you have to have at least 2 level 2 charging stations, I believe, oh no, never mind, I'm wrong. I was thinking it was a percentage basis of the total number of parking spaces, but it doesn't seem to be.
So if we were able to get a code change that requires this with some commercial and multifamily, there may not really be as much need for us to do like separate consulting about town infrastructure.
And that was part of the original hope, and that's where this came up, as we were discussing about, do we need additional consulting, or would it be possible to maybe push something through, or not push it through, but
Yeah.
have a change like this that would basically just kind of ensure that new construction and new permits going forward would automatically have more charging infrastructure built in from day one, which would alleviate a lot of our, the
Yeah.
planned work around getting a consultant, looking for places to install chargers and all those types of things. So,
But we have a very narrow time window. So how long does it take to get a code change approved?
So there's a very good template already right
Yeah.
here. But I honestly don't know what type of work it would take on the staff level. It has to come to the board for approval. I don't know if this is something that, I mean, I can ask Matt to expedite it and put it on our agenda as soon as possible, but I don't know how fast that is, so, but I have no problem doing that either.
And to your point about timeliness too, that was also one of the concerns raised about the consulting project, because we would have to wait and see if we got funds for next year, and that would be next year before we could even start
Yeah.
the consulting process, and then be however many months until we had results from that, and then we'd have to go to the board for approval. And so this would be, you know, it's really not perfect, and there's a lot of permits that have already taken place, but this
Yeah.
would potentially be much faster as a way of promoting EV charging infrastructure in Superior, so.
Do you know how long this has been in place in Boulder?
I don't, that's a really good question.
I'm wondering if would be any feedback from them as to how it's working. I don't know.
How is this related to the emergency resolution we passed 3 or 4 meetings ago, where we said that we wanted the town to start considering immediately adding infrastructure to handle EV charging station and roughing that in? You remember we passed that, and Karen, you said we could do an emergency resolution right on the spot. And I think that was the whole point of that, was to expedite that straight to the board, to require all new projects. Because the whole point is, while there's lots of dirt out there, let's at least lay the conduit. So if a few years down the road, we want to run the wires through and add chargers, we could. And I think that was more at the commercial parking lot level, that kind of stuff. But I know these are similar, but probably not the same things.
Yeah, so this is a very sort of vague and general suggestion for
Yeah.
the board to consider, whereas this would be very specific language that,
Yeah.
you know, depending on town staff's views on it and stuff, could theoretically be just copied into our code
Yeah.
as soon as it's approved. So it's much more specific and actionable.
I guess I was just curious
But-
if that ever went anywhere.
No, and so I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, because there wasn't any sort of specific recommendation other than the budget request that we just did, a budget recommendation. So we haven't had any other sort of recommendation that has gone to the board.
I thought we
I
had a
don't
recommendation a
remember.
few
We
months
did,
ago.
yeah, it was 3 or 4 meetings
I would have
ago.
to look at the notes
We'd have to-
though, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be specifically called out as a recommendation in order for them
Believe we did
to
that.
see that, and
Yeah, I feel like I was taking notes that meeting.
Yeah,
So-
okay.
I was gonna say, I don't think I was here.
I don't recall that.
Let me,
We should look back and see exactly what we recommended.
was that April?
Probably in April or March. But with something like this with specific language, it sounds like Ken's going to try and expedite as much as he can, but there's no.
Right, and just as a quick reminder too, so it would have to be the entire board would have to obviously approve it and vote for it. So that's another thing to keep into consideration, that it would have to be an overall vote from the board.
Okay. I would say too, so this is basically just copied from the Boulder Municipal Code again. In looking at it, I didn't see, from my own standpoint, a whole lot of things that I think we would want to change for Superior. The one thing though that did come up is that, you know, certainly in residential and multifamily, it makes a lot of sense to have charging equipment built in to help future-proof buildings and make sure we're supporting future electric vehicles. On the commercial side though, as far as I'm aware, there are not a whole lot of really good guidelines for how commercial facilities are allowed to charge or not for charging on their property. And so my one concern with this is if it passes and we have a lot of potentially, or some commercial facilities with charging on site, and they're all charging charging different rates for access to it, that could potentially be a less than ideal experience to residents. So that would be my only thought. I still think it's great to promote EV charging equipment, but I was just curious to get other people's thoughts on that, and whether that's something we want to have in place when we go to the board with this proposal, or if it's something that, if we go to the board with this.
So in downtown, is the parking like by commercial business, or is it like city park? Like, do the businesses actually have their own like I own this property, or is it all like street parking that's town
Yeah.
property? Because I don't know, like,
I think everything that's on the street is going to be
That's a-
town property. However, there's the current parking garage that's over next to the medical office, and then.
and
in
that's
the-
a privately owned,
Yes, but I know there's something coming forward to us about that in the
Okay.
next board meeting, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I don't know if it's going to stay that way, or if that's what's proposed. There's also another parking garage that is, at least it was in the conceptual plan that was shown to us a few weeks ago for the commercial core, that will be next to that plaza area in front of the sports stable, that part of it would be open to the public, and then on the outside of the parking garage would be residences. So the other part would be for private use within the multifamily. I don't know how that one would be. I'm guessing since some of it is private use, that the entire parking garage might stay private use as well. So there's probably both public and private use parking
okay.
there.
Yeah, I just didn't, there's not a lot of like parking lots where it would be like
Sure.
commercial. So I don't know how much EV charging is actually going to be deemed commercial.
That's true. And actually, Ken, do you know what the current proposal is for, I forget the name of it, but the area near like Whole Foods through the RTD area?
Marketplace.
Marketplace?
Yeah, I guess it's Marketplace. Do you know if there's going to be more businesses going in there with parking? 'Cause I think that seems like the biggest opportunity for this, more so than the downtown, to your point.
Yeah, so I know there's still one open commercial pad. It's the one that's over next to, what is that, Panda Express, next to RTD. I don't know if there's any interest right now in anything being added there, but I do know that the RTD site area is also consistently kind of been under discussion for possible redevelopment ever since the LMI study was done 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm guessing as things get redeveloped, and I have no idea what the time frame would be on that, that's
Yeah.
when that would be a useful conversation. So even if, say, a code change can't happen immediately that would impact downtown Superior, there's going to be some type of change over the next decade over in Superior Marketplace that
Yeah.
any type of code change would certainly be applicable for.
We found that language on the April 11th meeting.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what came of this. It was, the committee recommends the board consider including EV charging infrastructure in all future development.
Yeah.
And it's
So-
in bold.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's just like a consideration, like,
Right.
Recommendation.
yeah. Like, you should think about it.
And again, the idea behind that is that's cheap to bury conduit while there's just dirt out there.
Yeah.
And I know the board, we saw it, we went over it, but because there was nothing that came forward as an agenda item, I don't think it got formally discussed.
Didn't go
Okay.
anywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, do we need to bolster this to include more details about EV charging infrastructure? Or do you think this kind of covers it?
So, yeah, so I think the question is, are we good with a copy paste of this and feel like this would be good language to put into Superior? And if so, then it would be putting that as a recommendation, like the ACES recommends that the board move to update municipal code to include sections A, B, C. And then it's like a firm recommendation
Right, and-
of taking an action.
I would suggest in this situation, to get on the board agenda, if you want something as big as a code change to happen, and it's not just a recommendation like that was made before, then I would say we need to get on the agenda for a presentation.
Okay.
And for members to come and speak to the board and, present the actual verbiage.
Yes.
And that would give a easy way for, just to get the pulse of the board. That way staff doesn't waste a lot of time if the rest of the board doesn't like this idea. So maybe that's something, is anybody available for the next board meeting, if we can get on the agenda for that, it would be July 22nd.
I'm out of town. I should be able to do it, I think.
Okay.
And do we have to note, and is, I mean, this is this word for word boulders?
So far,
code?
yeah.
So,
And did you
No.
pull it
Apart
off?
from this text, they put in some sample text about, Town of Superior and that ACES is recommending this for these reasons.
Did you pull it off their website? Is that how you got it, or did?
Yeah, I looked through the Boulder Municipal Code and then
Okay.
just copied it directly. And so the only thing I changed is I deleted the references to the specific ordinances, which are Boulder specific. But otherwise, the wording's all the same.
I thought that was a good point that you brought up about, that they might charge for it. I charged my car when I bought my hybrid electric car, or plug-in hybrid, I was looking for places around Boulder, and I found one in like a hotel basement, like in their parking lot. I wonder if that was there because of the code.
Could've been,
And,
yeah.
I mean, I had to kind of, it was tricky to get in there.
Hidden away.
But, I mean, it was nice. That was more a curiosity, but it wasn't very useful, as like the Town of Superior ones might be.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of hotels that are doing it now. The one that just got built, the Element over there, has Tesla charging stations that they put in of their own volition.
Okay, so they're doing it on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be one of those things where it's, something that they do on their own because it's desirable for their clients, and
Mhm.
it's not needed, I don't.
So yeah, that does have the commercial covered right there.
Yeah.
So we might be covered on that.
Yeah, and it's just whether we want to have a official section focused on commercial buildings, or if that's,
That's
given the
what it's-
potential concerns about pricing and things like that, if that's something that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
But we could, if we want to propose this as is to the board, then that's really something where, they could look at those recommended changes, and then if they want to delete that section, they could. But
Okay.
if they want to have a really stringent, policy around commercial buildings, then they could just keep this in as is.
Okay.
And yeah, I do think it's worth noting too that a lot of the building that's happening in downtown and elsewhere in Superior is sort of, eco-focused and sustainably focused. So it does look like there are a fair amount of, charging facilities and things like that going in, just because it's what the developers want to do, or the companies going in. So.
it's interesting though that Louisville doesn't have anything in their code yet, and is
Yeah.
kind of surprised by that, so.
Yeah, me too. I was really surprised looking through all the different municipal codes that there weren't more local communities that were doing something similar, even if not as stringent as Boulder's. So I do think that presents an opportunity for Superior to kind of show leadership, especially since this is a priority that the board's had of kind of positioning Superior as an innovative, kind of forward-looking community in the area. So I think that would be pretty cool.
Great, thanks for putting that together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll try and get on the board agenda for the next.
Texting right now.
Okay.
I see 3 little dots, but I haven't gotten a response.
Okay. So I'll just put the Karen is
I was
going
also
to-
sending an email, so.
Things are happening
really
here. Let's do it tonight.
Should we make a motion to bring this before the board?
And I don't think you need to make a motion to bring it before the board.
Okay.
If you
Right.
want, I would say you could just make the motion to update the Superior Town Code.
Okay.
And I don't even know if you need to say specific language. You could just say, update Superior Town Codes, electric vehicle infrastructure regulations based off Boulder's code as a model or something to that
Mhm.
effect. And that would get across what's needed and would get this in front of the board.
Yeah, just as long as that's all captured in the notes.
Okay, so motion made to
And
update.
make sure it says recommendation, just so we're using the correct verbiage.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, does the town have resources for people to draft up what the official code language needs to look like, or? Or are they relying on like people like us to give them language that's all of a sudden going to become a code? Or
The town has
Yes.
resources to do
Yeah.
that.
because I know it's like needs to be specially written
The
and
town
all that. It's like
attorney.
writing a
Yeah.
contract.
Final, yeah.
Yeah. So that they can take this and make it what it needs to be. Okay.
Yeah.
So is it like a motion to make a recommendation to the board? Is
It's just,
that,
ACES makes a recommendation.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be,
okay,
motion doesn't have to be a part of it.
okay.
Okay, so we don't have to do a motion at this point, it's just a
Ace-
recommendation.
A recommendation.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, the only thing you can add on to that is where it's not feasible to install it right away, you can at least put the infrastructure or rough it in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, that'd be the only recommendation I made to the commercial side is rough in for future EV charging stations. I think that was the intent of our
Yeah.
motion 3 months ago.
Mhm.
And just to make sure that this definitely doesn't fall through the cracks, when you guys submit the minutes, if we can have that as an attachment, that way it's in
Sure.
with what the board gets in our packet, that'll make sure everybody else on the board reads it
Yeah.
as well.
So it covers residential renovation, multifamily construction, and new commercial structures. But it doesn't say anything about like town-owned property or like public spaces.
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
Municipal facilities.
is that something that we would want to include? Because
Well,
they're.
The reason for that might be because you don't need a town code.
To tell the town to put
that's
it
true.
in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
My guess is that would just be town policy, which
Okay.
you can also make a recommendation for town policy.
Okay.
But I'm guessing that's why it's not in there.
okay. Just know we tend to have a lot of municipal space in
Yeah.
Superior.
Okay, so I'll plan on coming to the next board meeting and then,
So what I've heard back is that Patrick Hammer, my supervisor, thought that the next town board meeting agenda was full, but there
Okay.
could be a possibility to do a work session. So
Okay.
he's gonna check with Matt Magley, and then I'll just, as soon as I find out, I'll email you guys.
okay.
Okay.
And then would it be possible to just include this document along with the
Yep.
notes too?
And, because you sent it to me, so perfect.
Cool, okay. And for everyone's reference, let me just read through this and make sure it doesn't offend anyone. It said, to help better support electric vehicle adoption in the town of Superior, promote environmental sustainability, future-proof new residential and commercial construction, and promote the town's reputation of being a conscientious and forward-looking place to live and work, ACES recommends that the town board adopt the following additions to the town of Superior Municipal Code. Does that sound okay to everyone?
Yeah, sounds real nice.
Cool, thanks. All right. So Karen and Ken, I'll just look for feedback on when I should plan on showing up somewhere and talking about stuff, so.
Perfect.
All right, thanks. So last time we talked about budget recommendations a little bit, and we passed a motion to request additional funding for consulting for EV charging input. But I just wanted to spend a little bit more time and see if anyone had any further budget recommendations above and beyond what we're already funding, or the town's already funding. And so these were some specific suggestions from the work plan. Basically, at the last meeting, we just said, we propose additional funding for the consulting and then, maintain funding for all of our existing programs and initiatives, or something along those lines.
And that I know has been included, so I know
Okay, good.
that did go through. I made sure, and it is
Excellent.
in the draft of the budget right now
Okay.
as a recommendation.
I thought that the single can replacement had all happened.
So that was why I was a little confused when I saw this. And
Yeah.
that was why I sent you that question, because if you'll.
Okay, I
look-
totally misunderstood that then.
Yeah.
Okay, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought single can replacement had all been part of like
think
2
you're
or
right.
3 years ago, the grant matching that the committee had. So I don't know that that needs to stay on there.
And I don't know, I think since we made a recommendation last meeting too, it'd be more just if we have any changes in that. And so
Okay.
this was from the work plan, which
Yeah.
clearly didn't get updated, so we'll update it for the
Okay.
future work plan. But yeah, these are the types of programs that we're currently funding, I believe. And so it'd be more if we have additional requests for expanding these programs or additional funding to support consultants or anything else relating to any of these types of things.
The first bullet there, it's a little vague. Is that for specific things or?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that one too. I think in the past, we've left things a little open so that we don't box ourselves in on what we can and can't go into. But I think one of the things that we do need to figure out more next year is the discrepancies between town and HOA compost and trash. And I know that like the HOA contract is separate, but if there's like some more the town can do to guide the decisions of the HOA, and I don't know if that's us.
Cringing.
Well, providing recommendations.
Certainly, I mean,
Yeah, so I don't know if that's like us going to, and many of us live in Rock Creek, like going to the HOA meetings and, you know, as a representative of ACES and saying like, these are the priorities of our committee and we're trying to do this for our town and the way that you're composting is not working. So I think we really should dig our heels in on compost as in the future and figure out, like, I don't know what that means budget wise, or if it means anything at all budget wise, but it just seems like it's been a constant, like, well, we want to do something, but we can't do anything because we don't have control over 80% of the households in Superior.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea. I mean, any sort of education outreach, I mean, that's definitely a part of your work plan and your mission is to get that information out there. So if that's something that the members want to do and you know, kind of go together as ACES, you know, so that it's coming from the entire committee and not just one person, that's definitely encouraged.
I mean, there's a lot of towns around us that offer curbside composting as part of their regular trash pickup. I mean, what's preventing the town board by passing a resolution across the whole town that requires curbside pickup on old households? I mean,
Nothing.
there's absolutely nothing. And then
yeah.
that would override the HOA rules, right?
That's right.
Because it's
So
the town.
I just forwarded to you guys all a Daily Camera article from a few weeks ago. And it discussed how Boulder, the city of Boulder, is kind of the lone bright spot within the Front Range for recycling and diversion rates. And to quote what's in the article, in 2016, the city adopted a zero waste ordinance, which requires all property owners to subscribe to compost, recycling, and trash services, and requires all businesses in the city to have infrastructure to use diversion services. So we could easily pass something to that same effect. That one, because you're now requiring households to take on that extra cost of paying for compost, because that is available right now. There is a compost option. I think it's
expensive.
Yeah.
$120 for April to October, twice a month.
Yeah, and I don't think it's even available outside that range, right?
It's only, there's not an option to do year round, which people eat food all year.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't know. There would probably be some
I only
pushback.
eat between April and October. Then I go into hibernation.
If you really cared about the environment, you would only need 3 months.
So true sustainability plan, everyone should be hibernation.
Shut the power off.
Save a ton of energy, reduce our food waste.
So I would foresee much more pushback since that would impact everybody on a day-to-day, weekly,
But I
monthly
think
basis.
part of the reason the cost is so high is because it is the
No.
limited number of households and the special pickup, and I think that's what the other towns have found, and we could reach out to their,
I mean, I know they do it in
committees.
Louisville.
Yeah, where
And you can
it's-
pick the
yeah.
size, I think you can pick the size of your can.
Yeah, and if it's every household that's doing it, then the cost goes down for everyone, so it's not,
Yeah, and I think the size of the can is a big thing too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we all don't need those 2 large 96-gallon containers.
no.
And so I think to be strategic before we upset people of paying higher fees, it might all balance out. You know, with smaller cans, fees go down, now we're picking up compost, now there's lots of people involved, it might be a wash.
If we can, and I don't know how to start gathering that data and that information.
Yeah.
But that, I fully agree, that's probably the first step to go to see. I mean, we have a huge economy of scale right
Exactly.
here. So how do we utilize that and how do we start to figure that out?
Yeah.
And that, I think, makes it easier going to the residents saying, hey, we'd like to propose this. And it would certainly make it easier coming to the rest of the board to approve and consider a change like that. But I mean, we have a town board retreat at the end of this month, and one of the things that I'm gonna ask to be on there is just all of our efforts towards our town board goal of support environmental sustainability, because I don't know that we as a town board have necessarily stepped up and done enough in that area. So these are the types of things I'm gonna start pushing the rest of the board to think about and consider. So I'm hoping that I believe it's July 29th, we have that meeting. We'll hear a lot of support from the rest of the board, and that's when I would say fair game till you guys start coming up with anything and everything you throw at us, because over the next year or two, that's what I really want to be pushing. How can we as a town really start making a dent in this goal? Because we've kind of been plateauing for some time, in my opinion.
I mean, can we invite trash providers to come and give us bids and presentations on
So,
options of can sizes and pricing and all that kind of stuff? Is that within our
I think we can.
boundary?
I think the issue at play is that there are separate contracts for the town and the HOA.
Yeah.
So Rock Creek which they're getting a new HOA management company, I think. Again, you know, they manage their own contract and they say it's the best in the Front Range area on pricing.
Mhm.
And so we haven't been able to get them to do anything to change their contract, where it's like, we could certainly, I think, talk with providers and say, oh, for the town, which isn't the majority of households.
I guess I just don't know if the HOA's ever asked the question of what are our options if we just move
Yeah.
composting across the board. I don't know if we even know what the data is.
Yeah.
I know this waste study we did was kind of another way of trying to build data up to go that route, but all of our communities around us are doing it, you know.
In the past, we did have a regular recurring member of the Rock Creek HOA that used to come to this meeting.
Okay.
And so he was interested in exploring this further, and basically they didn't find any cost-effective options for offering curbside compost pickup. But yeah, I mean, there's so many other communities around us doing it, and I have to believe that there's some sort of option that doesn't cost a fortune. So
this is kind of outside the box thinking, but what would be keeping the town from taking over the trash pickup for the whole HOA?
No idea.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
mean,
sure that
then
the
it's all
HOA
coming
is
through our tax
interested in
dollars, and
that.
it's not
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
as impactful as your HOA fee just went up $50 a month to cover this
Yeah.
new service.
Yeah, I don't know, what the history is on why the HOA manages their own trash contract versus being part of the town.
I could find out that, I don't know. Martin would have that
Yeah.
info immediately.
Is it different,
Yes.
is it different people picking up the trash and?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally different contract and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which it's been a continual kind of challenge for us in this committee to work through ever
Yeah.
since I've been here, is that, since most people live in Rock Creek, it's
Yeah.
a unique challenge.
Karen, would it be possible to have Martin send that historical context out to everybody, and then coincidentally or fortuitously, at the next board meeting, the work session is going to be a dinner between the board and the HOA board.
Really?
So-
The work session is?
Yep.
Oh, so that was
That's
what
handy.
Buster was talking about.
Yeah,
so-
Good timing.
I wonder if he was referencing a next work session.
I know, because I said specifically the 22nd.
Oh, he might not know about it then.
Right.
Yeah. I have seen confirmation between the
Okay.
HOA president, though, and Matt,
Okay.
that they're going to be on the schedule for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I can certainly ask those questions, and then
Yeah.
normally there's not public comment during the work session, but if
Yeah.
this comes up, if one of you guys are sitting there, I can certainly defer and say, ACES is considering
Yeah.
broaching this topic. Let you guys talk, but.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, if you guys are doing the work session, saying our committee would like to engage with them if this is something that we could have some further discussion about, whether that's at one of their meetings or them coming to one of our meetings or something like that. So just trying to figure out how to reopen the dialogue. And
I mean, I also know other towns around here, in the springtime, they do like a spring cleanup, and you can put all your branches and stuff out in the street, and the town will come by and pick all that up for you.
Mhm.
I mean, again, I don't know if that's just because the HOA controls all the solid
Yeah.
waste pickup that the town can't jump in and offer that service.
I think, didn't they do that in the past? I thought I'd heard of that, and then it got
Sounds
discontinued
vaguely
because
familiar,
like
but I can't
nobody
remember
put
for sure.
stuff
No, I'm
out.
thinking now.
Yeah.
Maybe
And then
that's
we were
a-
like, well, we have the yard waste facility, so we don't need to
Yeah.
do a special pickup day because you can drop it off
But
any
no one
weekend
knows
you
about
want
the yard waste
to.
facility, so.
I mean, we're small enough and it's close enough, maybe that wouldn't be a valuable service, but, okay.
Mhm.
I do know some towns do, like after a storm or something,
Mhm.
they'll make a special collection of
Yeah.
that stuff, just
Yeah, that's
make
nice,
it easier,
too.
but.
Mhm. And do a pamphlet collection for all the hail companies coming out. Pamphlets. So we've gotten a little bit off topic.
Yeah.
I definitely think that'd be an excellent agenda item though for a future meeting, so I definitely want to bring that up. But does anyone have any specific budget recommendations beyond what we previously suggested that they want to discuss for going above and beyond existing programs?
So would a budget thing be, having EcoCycle provide the zero waste services at all town events? Like, cause I know there's a cost to having EcoCycle as the vendor for that. And so if we wanted all town events to be zero waste, having, being able to pay for that out of our committee funding.
That would be a question I'd have to ask.
Okay.
Okay.
And do we have to ask for money for like the seminars, like the WaterWise seminars again? If we're interested in doing more of those?
Well, that
Would
just
be a
comes from
specific-
the $5,000 that each,
Yeah.
the committee
Oh,
has
okay,
allocated.
okay, that wasn't like.
Or
That's
just-
not above
yeah.
and beyond,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things like the dog park compost program.
Don't come out of that?
Huh?
Those don't come out of the 5,000 that we're getting?
No, that's separate, I
Okay.
believe. Let me know if I'm misstating things.
Yeah.
So those types of programs are a separate budget item, and
Okay.
then our committee has $5,000 per year to use basically as we see fit. And then we've requested another, I believe it was $5,000 for an EV consultant as well for the next year. So we do have $5,000 for next year to work with regardless. It's just kind of if we want additional funding above and beyond that.
And did we want additional funding for the matching grant amount? I don't know that we know what our project would be yet, because I think the problem we ran into last year was like the deadline to submit for that was like January, but we'd already missed like requesting budget.
For which grant?
The one that we did for the waste sort this year or something. But I think was that in addition to the 5,000?
So the one that's currently running right now, that's been taken care of. And so you're talking in a new?
Yeah,
Okay.
but so for the matching grant opportunities, if there is a project that comes to mind, does it have to come out of the 5,000, or
Mhm.
could we go ahead and like say,
I think it would have to be pretty specific and you would have to
Okay.
know exactly what it
Okay.
was. I don't know
Okay.
that it would get
You can't just
approved
have a
without,
grant.
right.
okay,
Yeah.
Nothing's jumping to mind.
Okay.
I think it looks pretty good.
All right. We will skip to the final item, which is, this is something we've talked about for a number of years, and I don't think we've ever figured out a good way to make it work cost effectively, but the possibility of a fall leaf collection program. I think Superior did it at some point a while back, and then it stopped, and I don't really know the whole back history of it, but
Well, we get the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts involved.
yeah.
You can make it a fundraiser.
that's what I was
Really
gonna
good.
say.
I like what
Yeah.
they do with the Christmas trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is at least it's kind of a mutually beneficial.
Mhm.
Since the Boy Scouts get the Christmas trees, maybe the Girl Scouts get the leaves.
Yeah. We could have a leaf for cookies program. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Much rather have
Exactly.
cookies.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't something like that, it would have to be like the town collecting.
Mhm.
So would that be like through the town trash contract?
And I think that's one of the problems we've run into in the past is again with the disparity
Yeah.
between the HOA and the rest of the town. How do you have a unified town fall leaf pickup
Yeah.
program? I believe that's something that's come up in the past.
What's the concept here that the town would literally pick up the brown bags of leaves and take them to their recycling facility?
I
Is that-
think
Yeah.
so.
That's kind of
Yeah,
what.
so everyone could put their leaves out on the curb and then
Just like
we'd have a truck drive up and collect them all and then toss them in the
And does the
green
town
waste.
have the infrastructure and the equipment to do that?
So it would be like the town would have to work with their trash contractor, probably, would be my assumption, to do like a special pickup event.
Because I don't know how it works in these other towns, like
Yeah.
your Branch and Sticks pickups, if they're just using big town trucks and they're driving around throwing the stuff in, or if
Some
it's.
places like vacuum them, it's like a
Yeah.
giant vacuum truck and
So
you don't even have to back.
That would be awesome.
But of course, here you'd put them out and it'd be like the windiest day of the year and then
True,
everybody
yeah.
leaves and just go around.
Longmont says that they have it where you can go pick up free leaf bags at their waste diversion center. And then one pass is made through each neighborhood, on a specific collection day based on what your trash day is. So I don't know if they are using their same trash trucks.
Yeah.
So I actually just found out that one of my colleagues at work is on the Longmont Sustainability
Ah.
Advisory Committee, so I can ask her about it.
Okay.
I like the idea of giving, I know we've talked about giving out bags at events, but I like the idea of having an event where we hand them out in the fall, the brown bags.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe if we could hand out bags with information about the green waste site, since a lot of people I think just don't know that it exists.
Mhm.
That'd be awesome. Here's a bag and directions to the facility.
Or maybe they pick up the bags at the facility.
Yeah.
How much would it cost for us to give every household a leaf bag?
No idea.
How
I mean,
many-
they're like, yeah, like 5 bags for like $2, I think.
Yeah. There's like 2,200 households in.
40 cents a
Superior.
bag times.
So how would you distribute them? Are you thinking at a town event? And if that's the case, and you're only getting a fraction of.
Well, so I think we could try and do like,
Chili Fest. Hand them out to
Chili
Chili
Fest.
Fest. That's about
Actually, yeah,
the
that'd
right
be great.
time.
but also like the eco-cycle, we could see if their like neighborhood leaders would be
That's true.
interested and we could do like actual
They could
just
pass them out,
door-to-door
too.
distribution.
Mhm.
With like a flyer about,
Yeah.
What to do with where to bring your leaves.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. That'd be cool. Do we have any remaining budget this year, or have we successfully used it all up?
So I don't.
How many bags
so-
can we buy?
I don't think it's all gone, but I haven't looked at that line
Okay.
item, but I can
Sure.
look at it.
Okay.
I'll send
Yeah,
that
that'd
out
be
with the next email.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, especially if we can leverage the EcoCycle folks, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
Just go and deliver a bunch of bags. That'd be cool. Well, maybe that's an item then for next time too.
Yes.
We'll do some additional research for now and then bring it up again in the future.
Okay.
Kim, when's your retreat with the town, HOA?
With the HOA?
Yeah, the HOA.
The HOA is the next town board meeting, which is the 22nd.
So you'll be able to provide us an update on the solid waste options or recycling
Yep.
at the next meeting, great.
Yeah. And that'll either, if you want to watch or attend, it's either going to be at 5:30 or 6. I'm not sure which, since it's a dinner, those typically start at 5:30, so.
Okay, great.
Excellent. Any further comments on fall leaf collection or anything else? All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. We can wrap the meeting up.
6:38 p.m.
Woohoo!